Guys, welcome back to Justin Tech Tips. Finally, after a lot of testing, we've got our review of the all-new Alienware x17 R1 gaming laptop. Is it time to throw away my Alienware M17 and replace it with this one? The X17 is great and all, but I do feel a little lied to, and there's a few reasons for that we'll talk about a little later. If you do purchase this before watching the whole video, make sure you do not update the BIOS, and we'll explain why here in a sec. Now, we've already created a fun unboxing of this beast, but in this video, we're gonna break down every single thing that you're gonna need to know before spending this kind of money on a laptop. Is it really worth it? We're gonna be revealing performance and gaming benchmarks, advertised features versus reality, fan noise tests, design and build quality, review of the internals, heat tests, battery tests, a few cool tips and tricks that nobody else is talking about, and near the end our overall take on this machine, listing out the top pros and cons that you need to be aware of and weighing them against each other so that you can make the best possible decision for your budget. I've also read through over 1,000 YouTube comments on other review videos to make sure that I addressed every unanswered question that you guys had. This is the i7-11800H 8-core processor capable of speeds of up to 4.6 GHz with turbo boost. We got the RTX 3080 GPU with 16 gigabytes of video RAM. This is the 4K UHD screen with 500 nits brightness and 120 Hz refresh rate, but you can get up to 360 Hz with an FHD display. It's also worth noting that Advanced Optimus is only available with that version. We also got 32 gigabytes of the fastest 3466 MHz XMP RAM, but did they actually give us the ability to achieve that? Design and build quality. When it comes to design, some of you may say that I'm a little biased because I've always held Alienware up as the gold standard of great looking laptops. No, they don't sponsor me, that's just my opinion. But I would like to thank the actual sponsors of this video, IP Vanish. It's a simple solution for taking back control of your online privacy. IP Vanish is a VPN which acts like a secure tunnel, creating a layer of protection between your device and the rest of the internet. IP Vanish's network is secured with high-grade encryption, and by hiding your IP address, it will eliminate connection records. It stops tracking, prevents hacking, and bypasses censorship. See below for my link in the description for more information. Now, this X17 has set that bar for design even higher than before. I was overjoyed when I found out they brought back the RGB backlit touchpad, this time with an even broader spectrum of colors and animations. And the size is a little smaller than the previous 17-inch models. They also updated the LED Tron bar in the back to a full spectrum version with 100 LEDs and more beautiful animations. The per-key RGB mechanical keyboard looks great, but here's one of those disappointments where they misled us. Do you remember that exciting reveal video for these new X series laptops? In that video, they falsely portrayed that all of the secondary keys glowed like they used to. This unfortunately is not the case, as they definitely do not light up. This is pretty frustrating for someone like me that does a lot of work at nighttime in the dark, and I can see how that'd be pretty frustrating for gamers at nighttime as well. However, this is a great thing to bring up if you just have buyer's remorse and you want to return this laptop. There's no way they're going to charge you a restocking fee if you bring up that borderline false advertisement. For a while, Alienware had given us the option between a dark and light version of their laptops, until this one. This time around, they only gave us one option, combining both versions with white on the outside and black on the inside. Hardcore fans of one or the other may be a little disappointed, but honestly, for me, I really like it. Overall, the laptop is pretty solid and feels like it's made out of quality materials. The lid is pretty thick despite how thin the rest of the laptop is. This gave it a lot of strength and resulted in very little screen flex. The hinge felt very smooth and sturdy as well, but for screen wobble, that was just about average. And keyboard flex was very minimal as well. They've decreased the amount of ventilation on the back, but increased the amount of ventilation on the sides and moved most of the ports to the rear. Our tests showed the trackpad to be very accurate, and the keyboard had great typing accuracy as well. Alright, the mechanical keyboard. I absolutely love this mechanical keyboard. Definitely feels so much more firm and confident than before, and you definitely notice that extra key travel. It is a bit louder than before, but it's actually a pretty soothing sound. This is what it sounds like compared to the Alienware M17. The stainless steel switches are engineered in a way that allows for smooth key travel straight down no matter what part of the key is hit. I am a little disappointed that the number pad was removed, but I do love these dedicated media keys, and I'm sure this extra ventilation they put in place of the number pad was necessary. I did discover a couple solutions for the number pad though that made me not miss it anymore, and I'll show you what those were here in a sec. But first, let's talk about the macro keys. A lot of people all over the internet are complaining about the removal of the macro keys, but good news for you guys, they're not actually gone. If you look here on the first few F keys where the media keys used to be, you can see we've now got 5 macro keys versus the 4 from before. And this keyboard now has a function locking ability that allows you to enable and disable the function key without entering the BIOS. Most people I know only use their F keys for their secondary functions. So all you need to do is hit function escape to allow all your F keys secondary functions to work by themselves without the function key. Moving on to the ports. On the left side, we've got just one headphone and microphone jack with some ventilation. Then on the right side, we've got just a power port with some more exhaust ventilation. The large majority of all the ports are on the back, which I've got some mixed feelings about. I like that there's no cables coming out towards my hands, but I would have at least liked one USB-A port on one of the sides. We do have a great selection of ports on the back though. It has a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C Thunderbolt 4 port with power delivery, capable of 4K with speeds of up to 40 gigabits per second. A USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A port with power share. A little disappointed it's not a Gen 2 USB-A port. A killer E3100 RJ45 Ethernet jack, which by the way is not available on the X15 model. A USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port with power delivery. An HDMI 2.1 port, which technically has the ability to push 10K content at 120 Hz. That's pretty crazy. Extremely future-proof. And then a micro SD card slot and a mini DisplayPort 1.4. Now moving on to the internals. You can see now at the top we've got 4 fans. Then we've got 2 upgradable RAM slots right here. By the way, the RAM on the X15 is soldered on, so you can't upgrade it later. So keep that in mind. Then we've got 2 SSD card slots, one a PCIe 4 and the other a PCIe 3. And then at the bottom, 2 elongated speakers, and in between that are 87 watt-hour battery. So how well did this battery perform? We got 4 hours and 45 minutes of HD streaming, and then web surfing at 50% brightness in battery saver mode. The computer lasted for 9 hours. That's pretty good. And then it only took about 1 hour to recharge back to 100%. Display quality. The 500 nits display was extremely bright, even in direct sunlight. And the colors were very rich and vibrant, probably due to the fact that it has a gamut equivalent to a 100% Adobe RGB spectrum. The 120 Hz refresh rate on a 4K screen was definitely a welcome upgrade, as I've become very used to only 60 Hz on 4K displays. This made motion in gaming extra smooth, especially in racing and sports games. So thermals. This new Cryotech cooling technology, how was it? Did that with 4 fans actually keep this thin machine from getting too hot and throttling? Here are the CPU and GPU temperatures of each of these games at their highest preset settings. I was actually pretty impressed that a machine that's this thin running an RTX 3080 GPU at 165 watts could get rid of heat that well. This is one of the coolest high performing machines that I've ever used. And the chassis and keyboard was cooler than previous models as well. As far as the fan noise goes, you would think with 4 fans that would make the fan noise extra loud, right? In quiet idle fan mode, we got only 41 decibels. In performance mode, we got 48 decibels. And in full speed mode, we got 54 decibels. But by default in performance mode, the fans never actually pushed themselves that hard. And it didn't seem like there was that much of an improvement from performance to full speed. So even with doubling the amount of fans, the noise that it created was actually about average. So the fun part, everyone's favorite, performance and gaming benchmarks. For 3D Mark, we got an overall score of 11,769, a graphics score of 12,043, and a CPU score of 10,429. For Cinebench R23, we got a CPU multi-core score of 13,880 and a CPU single-core score of 1504. And for Geekbench 5, we got a single-core score of 1505, a multi-core score of 9133, and a CUDA score of 140,488. And here's a few Puget benchmark tests for all you creatives out there. For Davinci Resolve, we got 1180. For Photoshop, 987, and Premiere 825. These are fantastic numbers and absolutely dwarf what we got for the Razer Blade 14 and the Gigabyte Aero 15 laptops. Definitely a great computer for creatives. I've also just recently created a Google spreadsheet that compares all my past laptop benchmarks and FPS against each other. I put a link to that Google Doc in the description. I even did an 8K test in Premiere, and it played and scrubbed through the timeline like butter. But how well did it do in games? Here are the frames per second we got with each of these games at their highest preset settings at 1080p. And these are the results we got at the highest preset settings at 4K. So you can see these are great numbers and the highest scores that we've ever seen on this channel, but it really isn't miles ahead of the competition like they try to make you think. For a thin laptop, yeah, it's incredible. I haven't reviewed the MSI GE76 yet. I will pretty soon, but from some of the benchmarks I've seen on that one, it actually outperforms this X17. One thing to keep in mind though is I was only able to utilize 3200 megahertz of my 3466 megahertz XMP RAM. When I updated the BIOS, it capped capped off my 3466 megahertz RAM back down to 3200 megahertz. And after doing a bunch of research, I found out that there's no ability to roll it back for security reasons. This was pretty disappointing and is the main reason why I advise you not to update the BIOS when you get this machine. Wait until they at least have an update that fixes this. If you pay for 3466 megahertz RAM, you should be able to use 3466 megahertz. For the speakers, we have openings on the front and on the bottom. And as far as sound quality, I'd say it's about average. We got a reading of about 85 decibels at maximum volume. As far as the webcam goes, we did do a few tests with that. And here's an indoor sample of that audio and video quality. You can see it's kind of on the lower end of webcam quality. And here's an outdoor sample with a little bit more light. Looks a little bit more crisp, but still not that great a quality. Not too great, but what laptop is. And here's our experience with the Alienware Command Center. Not too much changed here. Here's our overclock settings, overclock 1, overclock 2, thermal settings, and then you've got your power settings. And then for our lighting effects, so we got the per key RGB. Right now we have it set on Rainbow Wave just to show you all the colors, but this is customizable per key. So not too many animations or customization options, but one thing you can customize now is this touchpad, which can also be Rainbow Wave or Pulse, Spectrum, and apparently the backside Tron bar now has 100 LEDs. So this can actually cycle and morph between different colors as well. And then under Fusion, you can monitor your CPU and GPU temperatures. And then inside Advanced View, you can actually set your power limits and your thermal limits for your GPU. And then in our thermal profiles, we've actually got settings for 4 fans now, which is pretty awesome. 2 fans for the GPU and 2 fans for the CPU, both customizable individually. And then just your power profiles and what those do. And then some customizable audio profile settings. So pros and cons. These are my top reasons some of you might want to pass on this machine. Number 1, it's very expensive. The very lowest base model costs $2,100, with the maxed out version costing a whopping $4,600. The configuration we got for this review was $3,400. And number 2 was no secondary key backlighting. This is something I needed to reiterate because a lot of you might have a problem with this. We need to see secondary keys at night. I mean, technically from the glow on the letters and the bounce light on the screen, you can still see them, but it would have been much better for them to glow as well. And then number 3 was the removal of the number pad. This became just mildly inconvenient though, because I found a really cool app that let me use my phone as the number pad. And I'll put a link to that app in the description. You could also get a very inexpensive portable external number pad as well. So my overall top reasons you do want to get this computer. Number 1 is the speed. This is definitely one of the fastest gaming laptops there are out there. And it would be a dream machine for both gamers and creatives. If you're gonna be doing some creative work though, I recommend that you get the 32 gigabytes of RAM. And number 2 is the design. Man, this really is a beautiful laptop. Very sleek and well built, and the lighting effects upgrades are just the cherry on top. And I love that they stuck with that sci-fi hexagon theme. You might have noticed I kind of like hexagons. And number 3 was the thermals. Well done, Alienware. You finally figured out how to bring those temps down. I'm going to give the credit to that new Cryotech cooling technology and the additional fans. So aside from a few nitpicking dislikes, this is an amazing laptop that I definitely recommend if you've got the money, because it is on the pricey side, but it's also a super future-proof machine. I'm predicting even better speeds later down the road after a few BIOS updates. Guys, remember every Friday I do a giveaway that randomly selects someone who's interacted with this channel. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications turned on to stay up to date with that, as well as staying up to date with all of our latest videos. Before I announce today's winner, if you're going to be getting this laptop, if you could please use my affiliate links in the description below, I would really appreciate it, as I get a small commission at no cost to you for every purchase made. I can only continue to do YouTube full time with your help. And the winner for this week is...
GH.
Thanks for watching, guys. I love you guys. God bless.